Let's talk about the 1AC, or the first affirmative constructive. As you know, the 1AC is the first speech given in the debate round. It's given by the first affirmative. It's 8 minutes, and it's also pre-written. You also know that the purpose of the 1AC is to address 3 of the 4 stock issues: inherency, harms, and solvency. The 4th stock issue, topicality, is not addressed in the 1AC because the affirmative team presumes to offer a topical plan. Thus, only the negative team introduces topicality. Finally, you know that the 1AC describes the many advantages of the affirmative plan once the judge votes for it. So our focus today is on the structure of the 1AC. The good news for all debaters is that the 1AC follows a nearly universal structure, so writing a 1AC is fairly straightforward. There are 3 parts to the 1AC: case, plan text, and advantages. So let's start with case. You've heard the term make your case or case close, or other phrases involving the word case. And case is defined as a set of arguments that work together to prove a point. In the world of debate, case is defined as your inherency, harms, and solvency arguments. You can also include plan text, which reduce the 1AC to 2 parts, case and advantages, but for the purpose of this video, we'll keep plan text as a separate 3rd element. Many novice debate teams include a brief introduction to their case, and there are many benefits to an introduction. First, it allows the judge to understand the basics of your case before you start bombarding them with debate jargon. Second, the introduction usually contains the complete resolution, word for word, which allows the judge to understand the debate topic. Believe it or not, most of your judges will not have seen a debate round before, and they may not even know this year's resolution. So a 20 to 30 second introduction in which you briefly summarize the main points of your case without using any debate jargon will be appreciated by the judge. And the 3rd reason to give your judge an introduction is to allow them to see the big picture before you start making it complicated. That makes it easier for them to follow you and not get lost. When you become a more experienced debater and you start getting judges who are more familiar with debate, you may discover that introductions aren't nearly as important. But for now, it's a wise idea to have one. After your introduction comes your case. This is where you provide your inherency, harms, and solvency arguments, and each argument is presented separately in chunks called contentions or observations. The terms are interchangeable, and some teams call them contentions, while other teams call them observations. We'll call them contentions, but honestly, it doesn't really matter. Your first contention is always inherency. Your second contention is harms, and your third contention is solvency. Then your plan text, then your advantages. Be aware that there are 4 variations that you'll see in the world of debate. I'm going to describe all 4 of them very quickly, but it might seem a little overwhelming. So let me first say that you get to choose which variation you prefer based on the specific case you choose. Even more importantly, the whole purpose of describing the 4 variations is to let you know that you may encounter a team that organizes their case differently than you are used to, and that's okay. Just follow along with whatever they say. So here are the 4 variations of organizing for a 1AC. The first, which I previously described, is the inherency contention, the harms contention, the solvency contention, the plan text, and then the advantages. The second variation is the inherency contention, the harms contention, the plan text, then the solvency contention, then the advantages. The third variation is to combine the inherency and harms contention into a single inherency contention, followed by solvency, then plan text, then advantages. This variation requires a powerful piece of evidence that proves the inherency and harms burden in the same piece of evidence. The fourth variation is to combine inherency harms contention, followed by plan text, followed by solvency, followed by advantages. Remember, it really doesn't matter at this point which variation you use, and my whole point of sharing these 4 variations is to show that different teams use different ways to organize their 1AC. When you become an advanced debater, the variation you use becomes a little more important. Some teams don't even have solvency, they put it in their advantages. But let's move on. All 3 contentions follow the same structure: the contention number, the stock issue, the tagline, the citation, and the body of evidence. It is necessary to use more than one piece of evidence to prove a stock issue. Then you'll want subpoint A, subpoint B, and so on. While it's probably wise to limit each contention to one piece of evidence, there are times when this is not the case. So it looks and sounds like this. Contention 1 is inherency. Government use of drones to spy on innocent Americans is increasing. Then read the citation, then the body of your evidence. Contention 2 is harms. Drone surveillance is a violation of our 4th Amendment rights guaranteed by the Constitution. Then read your citation, then read the body of evidence. Plan. The federal government will end the use of drones for domestic surveillance. Contention 3 is solvency. Ending the use of drones for domestic surveillance restores our constitutional liberties. Then the citation, then read the body of the evidence. Now, take a closer look at the case we just presented. you can see that it might be possible to combine inherency and harms into a single contention if you found really good evidence that proved both the inherency burden and the harms burden. You could also switch the plan text and solvency contention so that solvency comes first and the plan text comes second. But how you organize your case is a matter of preference and opinion. So let's move on and take a closer look at the plan text itself. The plan text should be presented in as few words as possible so that it's simple and easy to understand. This results in a better debate because the judge and the opposing team know exactly what the plan is. Confusing or lengthy plan text tend to make the round confusing, and since you're the team that offered the confusing plan text, judges tend to blame the affirmative team. However, you should be aware of some old school debate habits that you may encounter from time to time. 20 years ago, it was common for the plan text to include what we call plan planks. For the most part, the plan planks were the same from one case to the next, which is why they have largely disappeared from the world of debate. However, there are a few old school coaches who still teach their kids to use plan planks. So when you are the negative team, you might see plan planks from time to time. And if you are affirmative, you might encounter a negative team that is confused by your lack of plan planks. So here's the old school structure of plan planks. You ready? Plan plank 1 is mandate. Plan plank 2 is funding. Plan plank 3 is enforcement. Plan plank 4 is enactment. Plan plank 5 is the right to define all terms. Plan plank 6 is the right to fiat. Plan plank 7 is the right to clarify legislative intent, and so on. As you can see, spelling out these entire plan planks took a long time, and their only purpose was really just to remind the opposing team that the affirmative team had the power of fiat. So eventually, plan planks disappeared, and if the negative team had any questions about funding or enforcement or enactment, the affirmative team just claimed fiat or answered them in cross-examination. Thankfully, these exhausting plan planks have mostly disappeared, but I wanted you to understand what they are in case you ever run into them in the wild. And incidentally, it's not smart to put a funding mechanism in your plan for 2 reasons. First, it opens up ground for the negative team to attack. Second, that's not how legislation works. All bills in Washington are paid for out of the general federal revenue, which is like a big checking account. Just as you don't need to explain to the cashier at the grocery store how you earned the money you are using to pay for your groceries, you don't need to explain to the judge how you are going to pay for your plan. Okay, let's move on to the advantages. You know from previous videos that it's strategically wise to repackage your harms as advantages. So let's say you have evidence that drones leads to an abuse of government power. Instead of spending their time presenting this as a harm, which means your solvency contention now has to solve that harm, it's smarter to present it as an advantage. Unlike most contentions, advantages have multiple pieces of evidence and multiple taglines. Each advantage should include several pieces of evidence that, when summarized, tell a complete story. Here's an example of an advantage that tries to prove that ending drones decreases terrorism. Advantage 1, terrorism. Subpoint A. The use of drones to monitor our activities forces us to live in a police state. Then the citation, then the evidence. Subpoint B. Living in a police state forces us to retreat and remain afraid of the government. Then the citation, then the evidence. Subpoint C. Fear of the government makes us uncooperative and clandestine. Then the citation, then the evidence. Subpoint D. Uncooperative citizens do not report suspected terrorist activity, which allows terrorists to thrive. Then the citation, then the evidence. As you can see, each advantage includes a chain of logic in which one thing leads to the next. The fewer links you have in the chain of logic, the better. This is true because negative teams that can disprove one link can disprove the entire argument. Ideally, you would want to have about 3 advantages, and since each advantage has multiple pieces of evidence and takes a while to read, you can really start to see why affirmative teams might skip their introduction or combine their inherency and harms contentions. In fact, most affirmative teams have a goal of minimizing the amount of space necessary to prove the 3 stock issues of inherency, harms, and solvency, and maximizing the amount of space to describe the many advantages. That covers the structure of the 1AC. So let's spend a few minutes talking about the important checklist to make sure that you have everything covered. This might be something you come back to later on and watch after you've got your 1AC started, but it's a good idea to review it beforehand as well. First, can you read your entire 1AC in less than 8 minutes, and can your judge understand every word and follow along? Second, does your inherency contention prove that there is a problem that's stuck in the status quo and won't change anytime soon? Third, does your harms contention present an actual harm, an undesirable outcome caused by the problem in the status quo? Fourth, is your plan text simple and easy to understand? Fifth, does your solvency contention specifically mention your plan, and does it solve for the harms you identified in inherency and harms contentions? Sixth, Does each advantage include a logical chain of evidence and taglines that tell a story or all work together? Seventh, do you have enough time to include an introduction to help the judge understand the big picture you are trying to present and the text of the resolution? Eighth, and finally, have you chosen an organizational structure to your 1AC that best allows the judge and the opposing team to understand the problem, the solution, and the advantages? If so, congratulations. You're ready to try out your 1AC at your first tournament. Each affirmative round will function as a field experiment where you present and defend your 1AC. You will no doubt discover holes and flaws that the negative team points out, and you may not win every round, but your goal is to come back to the laboratory called your classroom or your home and do what it takes to improve, repair, and strengthen your 1AC. In the meantime, here are the major terms we introduced in this video. Make sure you know them all before starting your 1AC. Introduction. Case. Contentions. Observations. Organizational structure. Old school plan planks. Plan text. And advantages. That's all for now. Good luck, debaters.